पाक भारत तनाज़ा में पाकिस्तान वाज़े तौर पर जीता और इंडिया हारा। पूरी दुनिया इस बात पर मुत्तफिक है। सेंटर फॉर चाइना एंड ग्लोबलाइजेशन के नायब सदर और मारूफ तज्ज़ियाकार प्रोफेसर विक्टर गाओ की समा से खुसूसी गुफ्तगू। कहा, हिंदुस्तान अपनी बसाई दुनिया में रह रहा है। आजकल की दुनिया में हकायक छुपाए नहीं जा सकते। भारत को अब इससे सबक सीखना चाहिए। अगर भारत पाकिस्तान पर दोबारा जंग मुसल्लत करता है तो चीन पाकिस्तान की मदद करने से नहीं हिचकिचाएगा। प्रोफेसर विक्टर गाओ ने कहा, पाकिस्तान ने चीनी सिस्टम्स का बेहतरीन इस्तेमाल किया। दरियाए सिंध का पानी रोकना जुर्म होगा और भारत को इस इकदाम से रोकना होगा। कश्मीर एक मुतनाज़ा इलाका है। बातचीत के अलावा कोई मसले का हल नहीं। पाकिस्तान और भारत को बैठकर इसका हल निकालना होगा।
So Professor Victor Gao is the Vice President of the Center for China and Globalization and a prominent foreign policy voice in Beijing. Thank you very much, Mr. Victor Gao, for joining us. Today we will be discussing the recent conflict between Pakistan and India, along with its implication for regional and global dynamics. Let me start with the question about the potential outcomes of this conflict. What do you think? What kind of positive impact could Pakistan's military success against India have on long-term peace and stability in the South Asia? Could it lead to a shift in regional dynamics?
First of all, South Asia needs peace and stability, and countries on this particular subcontinent need to focus on peaceful development. Therefore, they need to engage with each other or re-engage with each other in peace and diplomacy, rather than threatening with each other with war. War, I'm afraid, will be the dead end. It will actually be very destructive of both countries. Therefore, it is time to call on both India and Pakistan to engage with each other in peace and to tone down the rhetorics and try to really use peaceful means to solve whatever problems there are between India and Pakistan. I think the recent aerial combat between India and Pakistan should have convinced every country involved that they should not eagerly agitate for war. Peace should be their top priority.
All right, fair enough. Mr. Gao, the reported destruction of Rafale jets has strengthened global perceptions of Chinese military technology and showcased the skill of Pakistani pilots. How does China interpret these developments and what impact might this have on future defense collaboration?
Well, there are several features for China's defense industry. Number one, very important, all Chinese hardware and software are completely made by China. China does not depend by any percentage point on imported weapons. The advantage of this is that all the pieces of hardware and software can be fully integrated with each other in a seamless web. And in the modern warfare, this becomes increasingly important because any split of a second's difference will make life or death issue. And China also emphasizes the merging of the several dimensions, including the space, the air, the ground, the surface water, as well as the submarine. Only by integrating all these dimensions together and to collect, analyze, process, and transmit the data on a real-time basis can you gain a split of a second advantage in time of war. As been demonstrated by the Pakistani side in the Indian-Pakistan aerial battle earlier this month, this becomes truly a point of great advantage for the Pakistani side. And I think the rest of the world will realize that China does have a very unique advantage in this particular regard, and China is a force promoting peace rather than agitating for war. However, China does have the military capabilities and the financial wherewithal to defend the peace and sovereignty and territorial integrity whenever it is necessary, and China will have no reservation in helping our Pakistani brothers and sisters in defending its legitimate rights of defending its sovereignty and territorial integrity.
All right, totally get that. Mr. Gao, let's move forward. And also, I would like to ask that in this era of open source intelligence and transparency, what do you think? How can India continue to deny facts?
Well, it seems that India is very much engaged in a parallel universe version of the parallel narrative. Well, they have a right to do that, I would say. The crux of the matter is that the rest of the world should have enough information to make a decision based on independently obtained data. And I think there are plenty of independently verifiable data to show that in the aerial confrontation between India and Pakistan earlier this month, there is one winner and there is one loser. I emphasized when I was interviewed on Indian television that Pakistan is not the loser and India was not the winner. So I think the rest of the world almost has consensus view as to what exactly happened, and India should really learn the lesson, and hopefully they will not agitate for war anymore going forward. Because I think, based on my personal analysis, the Pakistani side does have an advantage, not only by jointly producing airplanes with China, but also by using China-supplied weapons, including, for example, all kinds of weapons. And as I mentioned, especially the data collection, analysis, processing, and transmitting data to the planes. The planes themselves are not the totality of the military wherewithal. The planes become an integral part of the seamless data web, which would enable gaining an advantage, sometimes on a split of a second basis, to break down the enemy side without letting them know where the missiles come from.
All right. Mr. Victor Gao, what trade and economic incentives might the United States offer to both Pakistan and India? Is there any possibility that both countries could benefit from concessions under U.S. tariff or trade policies?
No, I don't think so. I think President Trump and his government are very much bent upon using tariff as a weapon in dealing with almost all the other countries in the world. President Trump is notorious about how he viewed India, for example, and he urged Apple not to produce Apple phones in India. I think his goal is very clear. He wants to make America great at the expense of all the other countries, possibly including countries in South Asia. So I don't think any country should have any complacency or should have any misbelief in what President Trump has in terms of maximum promoting his tariff policy against all the countries in the world. Literally, I would say, President Trump and his government are holding a gun at every country's head, try to use tariff as a weapon to bring them to their knees. I don't think this will be over anytime soon.
Right. All right. Mr. Gao, the Pak-China friendship is often described as being higher than the Himalayas. In the event of a future conflict between Pakistan and India, to what extent could China be expected to support Pakistan diplomatically, militarily, or strategically?
Well, I think the Chinese government has done its utmost to call on both India and Pakistan to calm down, to scale back, and try to use their best capabilities for peaceful discussion with each other. China does not want to see continued war between Pakistan and India because from China's philosophy, war should always be the last resort and no one should be allowed to agitate for war. And however, in case India still chooses to impose war on Pakistan, I personally believe China will have no reservation and no hesitation in providing as much support as possible to help the Pakistani brothers and sisters to fully defend its legitimate interest of protecting its sovereignty and territorial integrity. I don't think it is in China's interest to see Pakistan being defeated by India. But I think it will be in the greater interest of all the countries involved if Pakistan and India can engage with each other in peace and in diplomacy, rather than thinking about war or using war as a means to achieve what they cannot achieve by diplomatic means.
Let's move forward. If India attempts to alter the flow of water to Pakistan, could this escalate tensions?
Absolutely. I think no country should be allowed to divert water from the Indus River, because if the country in the midstream can be allowed to do that, it may bring extreme hardship for millions of the people in the downstream. Fortunately, India is not the real source of the river. And therefore, I would urge that India, China, and Pakistan probably should sit down at the same table in due course to talk about how the water problem should be solved equitably for all the people in this particular region. Water in the Indus River is of critical importance to the people in Pakistan who happen to be on the downstream. And India should not completely disregard its treaty obligation towards Pakistan and divert water or even stop the water from flowing in the Indus River for the benefit of the people in the downstream. How this can be really worked out, I do not know. But I think if I urged India not to do other things onto other people that they do not want others to do onto them. That's typically a very important Chinese philosophy. Don't do unto others what you do not want others to do unto you. This is the same for the water in the Indus River or in the river. And if India tries to divert the water or deny the people in the downstream the benefit of the water, it's not only very much of a crime, it is also something that should be stopped by a country on the upper stream.
All right. And do you believe India now has no choice but to engage in dialogues, including on Kashmir?
Well, Kashmir has been a disputed territory, and the unilateral actions by India should not bring the disputed status to an end. That means India and Pakistan should again sit down and negotiate with each other about how to really solve the disputed status of Kashmir. And I don't think India's claim will eventually work out, because you really need to look at all the factors involved in the Kashmir situation, and Pakistan and India should eventually use diplomacy and negotiation to solve that problem, rather than continuously engaged in war after war over the decades.
Right. And what role does China play in supporting Pakistan's defense capabilities, particularly if we talk about in terms of advanced and aviation and missile defense systems?
Modern defense industry is making progress by leaps and bounds, especially when we are faced with this AI revolution and the drone revolution. I hope Pakistan and China cooperation should include all aspects of what becoming increasingly powerful at, and by seamlessly working together, China and Pakistan can not only benefit from such close cooperation, but also enable Pakistan to be such a strong force on the South Asian subcontinent, so that war should not be threatened against Pakistan, and Pakistan itself should be a source of strength for peace, not only for the sake of Pakistan itself and the brothers and sisters in Pakistan, but for regional peace and stability and peaceful development for the whole of the South Asian subcontinent.
We would love to ask you a few more questions. Also, we want to know, is it confirmed that Pakistan is going to purchase the Chinese 5th generation stealth jet fighter J-35? And what strategic advantages would this jet offer over regional adversaries?
Well, I would say such important matters between Pakistan and China, let's leave them to the government-to-government negotiations and commercial arrangement, for example. I do not want to talk about them openly on an open channel like this, but I'm pretty sure that China will have no reservation to share with the Pakistani brothers and sisters whatever that is at China's disposal, with the sole purpose of helping Pakistan to defend its legitimate interest of protecting its sovereignty and territorial integrity, and making sure that Pakistan will not be threatened with war and will not be overwhelmed by any other country in that particular region, which may believe that they may have a military superiority. No, they don't. I think China-Pakistani cooperation will make sure that Pakistan will be freed from such threat, and if war is imposed on Pakistan, Pakistan will survive, not as a loser, but as a winner.
And if Pakistan confirmed the acquirement of J-35, how much time will it take to deliver?
Well, I do not want to go into details once again, but I think J-35 is a well-established brand in China. There are lots of details need to be ironed out. But of crucial importance, as I mentioned, a plane now in modern warfare does not operate in its own capacity. It needs to be merged into a seamless web of data, which may sometimes include not only the satellite, the AWACS, or the other supporting planes, or the data centers on the ground, and constant work, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of monitoring the other side. Try to come up with a dynamic roadmap of detecting the enemy side at no time's notice and striking ahead of time and destroying the other side without letting the other side see you. I think J-35 is much more advanced than J-10, but J-10CE already proved it's very much of a lethal and efficient weapon if it is put into this, as I mentioned, overarching seamless data web. And I think this web is more or less the same for J-10CE as well as for the J-35. But the difference is really in how you train yourself, how you train your pilots, and how the data collection and processing, analysis and transmission can be done better in a more seamless manner.
It's a great machine if employed well. Thank you very much for your time and insights, Mr. Victor.
Thank you very much.